You may have played poker, but playing poker in Texas is a different animal. This is the Texas Poker Podcast with Tyler and Clint.
Hello, this is the Texas Poker Podcast. I'm Tyler. This is Clint.
What's up, y'all?
And we are back with episode 34.
Episode 34, and, for once I've actually been doing some playing lately. So, I think you were the one who told me about it, Tyler, that $300 free time at Johnny Chan's 88.
Exactly. And like you said, for players like me and you who are going to use the time, that's just free money.
It is really free money. And I tell you what, when I went there to collect on it, and it was packed that day. A lot of people saw it as the same way, just free money. It was a gigantic, probably the biggest promotion I've ever seen done by a poker room. So I went on that Friday, and, there was no, some players were it seemed like they were nervous if there was going to be a hassle or anything. They just came around and gave the time. I mean, it was no problem whatsoever. Not the best of sessions. I did have one hand that kind of defined the session. I have, it's straddle pot. I think the $6 at the 1-3 table comes around to me. I bump it up to 30 with ace king. I think one or two caller. I think just one caller, and then it goes to the straddle guy who just jams it all in. His all in is like a short all in. It's like 125. Comes around to me. I'm well ahead of a short stack straddler's range.
Like you said, that literally could just be anything. I mean, it could just be two face cards at this point, really.
Yeah.
I mean, because for him, you got to think it's a pretty good squeeze spot. You open, call. I mean,
oh yeah,
it's a great spot for him.
So yeah, I was like, it would be a small pocket pairs. It could be like ace queen, ace jack. I immediately know I'm going to call, but then I was like, well, there's that guy to my left. I go ahead and push in all in over the top. He looks very pained and eventually folds. I flip over ace king. I'm fairly confident, and then I see pocket aces over there. So that was kind of how that session went. I ended up down $190, but that's fine. I mean, you're going to run into ace king, into aces, and that's fine. And I was glad to get the $300 in free time.
Absolutely.
Let me see. After that, I went and played at my I would say my home club usually is Texas Avenue over in College Station. I have been coming on a decent, kind of a little bit off this downswing. I'm started to get on a little bit of an upswing. I play pretty well, and it's going through the night, and I've got a little bit of profit, and I get kind of in a weird spot, which is kind of like a psychological spot for me a lot. We're playing Omaha high-low.
Right, which we always say is always just so high variance. Just, man, I mean, I definitely know that anxiety of the high-low hand at the end of the night, but go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So, it makes it 30, and I've got probably 150 in profit. No, it's 120. And it makes it 40, or I think it was 40, comes around, and I've got the rundown, king through 9. 9, 10, jack, queen, king. So, this is super strong in high. In high-low, it's very strong, too, because you have the high-low, but a lot of times if you hit that high hand with that, there is no low. So it's actually very strong. I call. Another player jams all in for 80, which reopens the action. The next player who originally raised now makes it 300. Or I think he could actually jam it in for 300 or something. The next player to his left calls. It comes back around to me. And like I say, this is a very tough spot because it's a super strong hand. But I know somebody down there has ace deuce for the nut low if it comes. And I just decide I don't want to gamble and just want to take the money. At that point, I could walk out, pay my time, and be up like $80. It was only a quick 2-hour session. And I've just been getting in spots like this over and over again where I'm up, and then I get into this spot, and it bricks out, and all of a sudden it's a losing session. So I end up making the fold. And the guy who did jam had pocket aces with ace deuce. I would have won the majority of the pot with a high hand. I would have made the straight. The guy who made it 80 ended up with the nuts with ace queen. I would have had the second nut straight with no low out there. It's kind of a weird spot. I don't know it, but I mean, that's very results oriented.
I mean, the most results oriented. I'll just say, since you would have won, you should have called.
So, I mean, but the psychological aspect, I don't mind the fold, but I'm not sure I should be folding because of that exact reason of wanting to just protect the profit there.
It's so funny because my thought when I have profit is the exact opposite of you. I use it as just like ammo to build up a bigger stack.
But see, is that like coming because you have been on an upswing like in the last?
I mean, that's what led to me getting felted over and over again when we first started playing. Is I'd get like $600 and I'm like, this could be it. $1,200. I'm all in, and then they just call and I just lose. But I mean, I remember I would always just be like, now I have even more money. So.
Oh yeah. So for me, like I don't lock it down as much as I used to, as far as profit does. But I mean, I will say it's in the back of my head.
Clint's like, I used to show up with a rack and just play out of the rack.
I used to sit down, raise pre-flop, steal the blinds, get up. $4 in 5 minutes is pretty good, y'all. No, it's so like I say, but it is kind of a psychological thing of, and I'm not sure that's how it should be, but so I ended up playing one more round and leaving.
Kind of another note on that is, I think we kind of talked about this though, like when I was playing in that 5-5 game and all of a sudden I had like $5,000 in front of me and you get ace king. I mean, there you are kind of nervous, to have that much money in front of you though. I mean, like normally I like using it as ammo, like maybe $1,000 I'll use as ammo, but $5,000? I mean, at some point it's got to go home to the bank, right?
I mean, there is a certain point. It's so yeah. I mean, I think everybody should have, but I mean, like to a degree, I think everybody should have like a certain. I mean, otherwise, I mean, you just have no respect for money whatsoever, and I can't imagine that does great for your bankroll.
Yeah, not great.
But like I say, but that being said, like I feel like the decision should be made based on the math and your ability to make the best decision. I'm not sure that the factor of protecting or like the protecting would be almost the exact almost like winner's tilt to a degree, right?
Yes, but I used to when I first started playing, I didn't have it wasn't winnings, it was just any money. I just didn't want to lose, period, because I just wanted to keep playing.
Right.
And then when I made the adjustment to just trying to make the right decision and not letting money in. So if you know the right decision, but the money's influencing your decision to make the wrong decision because of the money, that's when it's time to go. Right.
Right.
But I mean, so that was for me when when I told myself I was going to just try to make the best decisions possible when I first started playing, and just whatever happens is just going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's when I really, I think, started kind of more playing. Then I started studying and stuff, but.
Yeah, that sounds. I mean, like I say, making they say, poker is a game of decisions and everything, and I don't disagree with this decision here either. So I think it was the right fold.
And we talked about afterward that I mean it was kind of just a pure gamble at that point, right? And
definitely, I mean, it's definitely a pure gamble because there's at no point where it's like going to be that far behind or ahead. I mean, with high-low, it could be very difficult, though, because if a flop, like it was a great flop for me, but if it's a flop of 3-5-9, then I'm basically, just dead. I mean, like I have a chance. I mean, like there's probably going to be a low out there, which is half the pot, And I mean, I got nothing. So
You're hoping for king.
yeah,
Turn a king
yeah,
over for a king. Yeah.
exactly, and hoping nobody has a set.
Yeah.
So it was but I ended up walking out of that session. I just made a profit of $80. It was a quick session, which is fine. I mean, I just thought it was kind of interesting with the psychological aspect of trying to, especially when I am coming off of a little bit of a downswing, of kind of wanting to see like a profitable session. Sometimes you just kind of need that psychologically. The next session was actually the one that we played together over at 52.
Okay, right. So I guess I had an interesting hand right before you arrived, where I had pocket queens, and I made it 20 to go, and I immediately got 3-bet, but it was a pretty small 3-bet, and it was only to, I think it was 50. So I know you said sometimes you like the call here, but we're pretty deep stacked. He maybe had like 500, 600 around there. So I put in the 4-bet to 175.
Well, let me clarify. I think I like the call from me, but I think I like the 4-bet from you. Because here's the thing is I do believe you have some 4-bet bluffs. And I don't think I should be I should be 4-betting if it's always going to be aces or kings. Yeah, because someone could, like, just play that way. You actually will have a 4-bet bluff here and there, so I like it better from you than I do from me.
Yeah, so, yeah, I agree. I agree with what you're saying. But, so he snap calls. And like you said, just so happy not to see a 4-bet or a 5-bet from him.
Right.
But the flop comes queen of spades, 6 of spades, 3 of hearts. So
wow, you flopped the just complete nuts with not even much of a draw to other nuts.
Yeah, so I ended up checking it over to him. I was out of position here.
Okay.
And he checks it back. The turn is the ace of hearts. So I was thinking this could be great for me. So
amazing.
I check it over to him. He just snap rips it all in. Yeah.
And you snap call, obviously.
Yes, and it holds. So that was.
What do you end up having?
Ace king.
Ace king. I mean, talk about perfectly played. I mean, your check on the flop was really, really good. I like it because when you have the board that tied up, I mean, I don't know what you're really hoping that other person has. I mean, maybe tens or something, but I mean, you're not gonna get 3 streets of value there anyway, so you might as well check that.
Yeah, I mean, so that was pretty much was my defining hand of that session. So I mean, that was basically it for me. I ended up booking a small win, so that was nice. And then
I had 2 defining hands. Like I just sit down. I think you were just finishing up one of those queen's hand right there. And I get ace jack. I raise it fairly loose table. Feel pretty good about it. I called a couple ways. Flop comes jack 10 8. A little scary. I mean, it's kind of a connected board, but I feel like top pair, top kicker definitely worth going for value and protection on a top pair, top kicker and a draw heavy board. I bet, get 1 call. Bottom card is an 8. I mean, it pairs the 8.
But we got to say, you did get called by kind of the table VIP, right? I guess we had a few table VIPs at that game, but...
Yeah, definitely a recreational player.
Yes.
The 8's a little nervous, because, I mean, now 8 is ahead, but there's a lot more queen jack, king jacks, like pair plus draws, like 10-9, jack-9. So I bet here, and I like this bet of going for value here. So we go, I bet, and she calls. And the river is the worst river in the world. It's a 7, making a 4-liner straight. And like I say, that's not, people sometimes kind of overvalue what people could have here, but I mean, a 9 here makes perfect sense. It would have been open-ended, called all the way down. Jack 9 makes a lot of sense. 10-9. I check it. She bets 100, which I was getting about 1 to 5. I don't love my call here. At the time, I thought maybe overvalued King Jack. I mean, it was a crying call. I don't know. I honestly don't know what I was thinking here. But I call getting 1 to 5, and I'm just, and she actually turns over 8 and 9, in which she turn trips. The river should have actually probably saved my river bet. I mean, it was actually probably a pretty good river for me because it probably should have saved that $100. But you get sometimes you get hung up on a hand, especially when you're getting really good pot odds, and overvalue it a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it happens to everyone.
So I did not get stacked though. I lost like a couple hundred. I go ahead and add on, and then a couple, maybe like 30 minutes later, I get up pocket queens. I bet 20, and then I guess a fairly aggressive opponent makes it 3-bets it to 80, and then there's a call behind. I have probably like 350 and I have like 330, 350 in my stack. I just rip it all in. And, I'm like, well, if he's got aces or kings, he's got them. And that player who 3-bet me folded, basically snap folded, so he had to be just like a 3-bet bluff. The lady who called him actually calls me, and which I thought was great because aces or kings, she would have ripped it before here. And she had 10s and I hold, so which was nice because it ended up being a profitable session of about 255 after time. So,
man, when we both left there because we had to leave at the same time because I was having car issues. Man, what a horrible game to leave, huh?
I mean, yeah, it was the worst game to leave. I mean, it was. There were so many people just throwing money around and donking off. It was ridiculous. I hated leaving. I mean, time constraints and responsibilities, did not have a choice. But me and you were on the same mind that we just both hated leaving that game.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in that situation before where, I've told someone, well, I'm only going to go play for like an hour or two. Cut to, 7 in the morning where it's a 10-hour session because there's a player there who you just can't leave.
I mean, really, and I would say this is, again, like, I think the biggest hang-up in my game is not actually poker strategy, but probably table selection. Is staying when it's a great table, leaving when it's a bad table, and maybe sometimes asking for a table change when it's not a great table.
That's probably one of my issues, too. I almost never ask for a table change, unless I want to go talk to somebody. But it's not a reason to go table change.
Well, I mean, it can be for that. But, I mean, it's that being said, as far as, like, profitability, because, I mean, we study strategy all the time. But, if you're at a table full of nits, I mean, I'm not saying you can't win, but by them just playing correctly pre-flop, even if they're not great post-flop, you're very limited. I think in Texas you probably can, if they're not great post-flop, win because the way the rules are and the time fee versus if you're deep stacked enough. But, like, I mean, you're just not going to make a lot, and it's going to be a lot of kind of break-even-ish type stuff. You're going to have to hit big hands, and that's not really the way to play poker. It's just hoping to get lucky. I mean, you shouldn't be playing it like the lottery.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I agree with all that. I mean, like you said, just because the time, would it be the time rake or time rental fee or whatever, just makes the game play a lot different whenever you hear casino players talking about different strategies.
Yeah, because I was saying about, like, I listened to Bart's podcast, I think 2 weeks ago, and one of the questions was like, well, I play in a day game in a casino, and it's a lot of nit, and they're not great post flop, but how do I beat the game? And Bart's like, if the rake's bad, you can't. He's like, if you're playing post flop, I mean, even if they're bad post flop for the most part, if it's not deep stacked enough and the rake is decent, just by playing correctly pre flop, they're really limiting their mistakes enough just to where, I mean, the rake is just going to kill you. So it's now with our structure being so different and deep stacked enough, you probably can do a profit, but definitely not. You're limited based on your table selection.
Yeah, I agree. Was that basically the two noteworthy hands for you on that session?
Yeah, that was pretty much it. It sucked that we were walking out, and I thought I forgot to add it on and thought it was a pretty big winning session and then forgot. And then I was looking at my tracker. I was like, this can't be right. And I was like, oh, God. But I was glad to get, the profit of like 250. So that was nice.
That happened to me before, too, where I lose, and then I remember I also bought time. So I'm just piling on the loss. I have to go back in and add on another whatever I bought in time.
Oh, yeah. And that is horrid. So it was, so that was kind of that session. I mean, the most interesting part of the night, I think, was when we were walking out, and you had Ubered over there, and I was like, well, I'll drive you back to your house, and we're walking back to my car, and Tyler just stops at the front door, and is like, I'm gonna go get my car, and Tyler's like, okay. I was like, does this dude think I'm about to fucking valet for him? I'm like, what is going on here? And you'd forgotten that you Ubered and were about to go to your car. I was like, if you think I'm just gonna go pick you up at the front, I will leave your ass.
Well, because I always park on the other side of the parking lot. So you're like, it's super cold out here. Let's go. And I was like, good point. So I stopped. I was like, I need to go the other way. So I'm not going to walk that way to your car and then double back. So let me just stop here real quick.
Yeah, but it looked like you just stopped at the valet and you're like, okay, your ride is cold. I'll be inside. Come pick me up. I was like, I know this dude ain't doing this.
Like, please hurry.
Please hurry. I'm like, there better be a tip at the end of this shit. So that was kind of that session. Let me see. Has there been? Let me see. I did have a good session. Let me see. Texas Avenue. Oh, I did have like a session where I just one following session where I went to Texas Avenue and wasn't anything great. It was literally what I was just talking about, lottery. I mean, I was just hitting hands. Okay. I mean, I had pocket tens, raise pre-flop. The run out, the flop was 10 jack. In a three-way hand. He had king jack. And I flopped a boat, got it all in, and then that was good. And then it was just another couple hands where I ended up, just having, being able to, get hands and make hands, and I had a profitable session of 463. No, crazy great reads or anything like that. But it was nice to have a nice session, though.
Absolutely. I played one more day, but it was 2 sessions. So here's kind of what happened.
Okay.
So I was at the first room, right? And this was basically, just the real noteworthy hand is, which I think you'll kind of find interesting, is I had Jack 8 of spades, and we're pretty shorthanded. We were shorthanded in the sense 5 or 6 handed. So Jack 8 of spades is perfectly fine. I think I was in one of the blinds, and someone opened up pre-flop to 15 or 20.
I kind of need to know the stack side and all that, but I'm sure it's fine. Jack 8 of spades,
yeah, don't worry about stack
connected and all that. So yeah.
Please, no details. So, it was about 500 effective with the villain. So the flop comes 10 of diamonds, 9 of hearts, 3 of spades, complete rainbow, but I'm open ended.
Okay, that's a pretty flop. If you're playing Jack 8 of spades, this is what you're hoping for, right?
Exactly. So I'm kind of thinking he's probably going to bet relatively big, so I check it over to him. He bets 15.
Okay.
So I was like, well, this is, pretty good price to call. I call completely brick, no spade, no 7 or queen. So I was like, well, this is going to probably conclude things. So he's going to, bet maybe just over half pot or something, right?
Okay.
He bets 15 again.
Giving great odds here to call.
It's like it's Christmas, so I just call. It's just a gift, right? If you have such a draw and they're just going to let you draw at it for $15, might as well.
Right.
I drill the queen on the river.
Beautiful.
No flushes, just Jack 8, right? So, like you said, we have King Jack, but that's the nuts, but I have second nuts. I check it over to him. He bets 15 again. I raise it to 200. He snap calls with 9-10 for flop 2 pair.
Good God. What a weird way to play 9-10.
Yeah, and like kind of the importance of bet sizing too from his point of view, right? I mean, I know he was a recreational player, right?
Right.
So, I mean, he's just there to have fun. He said he's going to lose this money and go to the club, right? Is what,
Okay.
So you can't be too harsh on him. So, I mean, but just for our sake, really shows the importance of bet sizing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because, well, and like we say, like, people complain, like, well, the draws, you're catching the draws. But there's a certain point where if you're getting the odds, then, I mean, you should not be folding your draws with the right odds. I mean, that's negative EV as it comes. If you're going to get draws and get the right odds for it, especially with the implied odds behind, with most of the times, Texas is pretty deep stacked. I mean, it's huge. So this was, and I would say bet sizing probably was one of the biggest leaks as far as recreational players goes, right?
But it can be both ways, right? Because didn't you say before you started studying you were just betting like pot a ton of the time?
Yeah, I tell you what, before, like, actually the vlogs really helped me out, like, watching, like, what people are betting, because before I would just pot it, like, every time.
It's funny. You would pot it, and I would check. I didn't want to rock the boat. And that's what I would say in my head. Don't rock the boat. We got a good hand here. I don't want anything crazy to happen. Let me just scoop this $6.
Yeah. Which, I will say, I think I was accidentally maybe playing actually a little bit more correct. Way too much, like, the variance off the charts when everything's potted. So it's kind of difficult. But, I mean, in theory, if people are going to call everything with their draws, you actually do want to make them pay the maximum. So I think I was actually playing like accidentally correct at times, but I mean, I tell you what, when you pot everything, I mean, you get your stack in very quickly.
Starting with 100 big blinds, pot.
Yeah, they're like, you realize it's not a pot limit game, right? It's not pot limit Omaha.
And at that point, you're probably like, "What's Omaha?" But
yeah, right. At that point, it probably was actually. So it was but yeah, I like the idea of the bet sizing, because lately we've been, especially with down bets and stuff, been experimenting with bet sizing, and I'd say it's just been super profitable.
one of the more unprofitable things for me, just kind of on a side note, like I remember how we used to think that min clicking it back would be really good, and that no one would ever fold for a min click. People kind of find a fold. I mean, it just looks so strong. I mean,
Agreed,
it
yeah.
has not worked for me at all. I mean, I don't recommend it. I'd say just blast away. I mean, if you're going to raise, there's almost no point to min click.
I agree. Well, I don't know. It's a weird, because here's the thing: is I almost never fold for a min click.
Me neither.
I mean, but if people are doing it, but I mean, I can see the point, because how often is a min click ever going to be a bluff?
Well, there's that, but then there's also someone like me who's normally betting pretty big, all of a sudden comes out with a min click.
That's a
Talk
good
about
point.
red
That's
flags.
a pretty big tell there. Yeah, I mean, when you're blasting to no end, and all of a sudden you're like min raise, that does look super suspicious on your part.
Yeah, so maybe that's why it's just not working for me particular, but yeah, I've been horribly unprofitable with that. Or it just hasn't worked at all, really.
But I love this trying new things out as far as either down betting, over betting, I mean, the pot and stuff like that. It's been, I think, very profitable just experimenting with different sizes.
I've had a lot of success with down betting or C-bet down betting.
Yeah.
And like over C-betting, but also always down betting to kind of confuse the opponent, to where when they raise, sometimes you just fold, sometimes you have the nuts and you re-raise. That has worked pretty well for me.
Yeah, I think I think one of those really made a lot when on my trip to Vegas when I was at the Aria, I did that because we'd talked about it. And then someone re-raised me thinking that the down bet was actually weakness, when actually it was just something I do on that flop texture. And I actually made a lot of money on over there. So it was yeah, no, I'm really kind of liking like some of these and then I think like some of these like the bluffs, like making the bluffs bigger on the river so they get through more often, but also doing the same thing when you have it. Like I think you're very good at being balanced on your bluffs versus having it range.
Oh, they're gonna say about the amount I bet. I was like, yes, I'm all in.
Oh yeah, no, well that balanced as well on that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tyler's like, it's everything all the time, so it's super balanced. I mean, I don't even know what our cards are at this point.
I'm not gonna lie, I've had that happen before where it doesn't matter what you have. We're gonna have to blast our way out of this because we got no outs. So I've been there. Literally just forgot what I had. I'm gonna have to figure this one out.
Tyler's like, there's two endings of the story. Some good, some bad.
Yeah. So that game actually breaks. After I played that Jack 8 hand where I hit the queen on the river.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
So I ended up booking about a half a buy-in win, right?
Okay, that's not bad.
So, and then I ended up going to a poker room right across the street, right? It's right there.
Okay.
And I had something. Normally I would go home after booking a win like that. Like, I mean, it's nothing you're gonna write home about, but I mean, half a buy-in, it's pretty good. Didn't play that long.
I mean, like, kind of like that psychological aspect that I was having with the Omaha. But I mean, let's go. We'll get back to there. But I mean, it's always interesting to me on like hours in versus like kind of taking that profit and going. But that's. Yeah, I can see why you would normally go home, but so you make it over to the other poker room.
But I actually had something I had to do early in the morning, like 6 a.m. So my plan was I needed to play until like 5.
Oh,
and
okay.
the game broke at like 1:30.
I gotcha.
And it was a weird time because I couldn't really go home, or if I went home, I'd probably actually fall asleep and then miss what I had to do at 6. And I worked that overnight, so I didn't want to go to sleep, wake up, and then go to sleep to wake up to work. So it put me in a really weird spot.
I gotcha.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to go play. I looked at Poker Atlas, and I saw one room was running round of each. I was like, ugh. And then the room right across the street had some games going. So I went there. Wasn't running exceptionally well. Started off losing quite a few hands. Showed some bluffs, and people were less than impressed. And I had 2 hands. I mean, they're so similar. I'm just going to kind of lump them together for you, basically.
Okay.
One of the hands I had Jack 9. The other one I had Jack 10. Same exact thing happened, though. They were about an hour apart, though.
Okay.
On one of them, I flopped top pair with the 9, and I ended up putting in a raise on the turn and got called. But the end result of both these hands was the board was 8, 9, Jack, 10. So 4-liner to a straight, any queen, any 7, and also the flush draws were there. One time I had raised the turn and he donk led, and I folded. Okay. The next time I don't know, you just kind of hit a threshold where, I mean, you're just losing, and then I called and he had A7 offsuit for the bottom end of the straight. So I lost that hand, right?
I can understand this because in a vacuum, it sounds like a bad call. But this is a lot like when I was getting 3-bet all the time at Paramount that one session, and you're just like, they can't have it every time.
And it's to the exact same player.
Oh,
it's the
really?
same guy. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, now you're just wondering, is he good enough that he's just like bluffing these kind of scary boards for hands that you'd have here, maybe? Yeah, I mean, like I say, in a vacuum, it sounds like a bad call, but I mean, we've all been there. We've kind of leveled ourselves into making a call like this.
Yes, I mean, and then I add on, I get pocket aces, I make it 20 pre-flop, everyone folds, so I'm pumped about that.
That's super nice.
So I'm like, well, this is great. So then I go through a period where I'm playing a lot of hands because we're like 4 or 5 handed, and I'm just taking down the blinds every time. I told him, I was like, this is going to take forever for me to hit $1,000, taking it down $4 at a time. Is what I told the table. I was like, and I said, don't think I'm folding the big blind either. I'm not backtracking. I said, there's going to be a lot of defending out of this big blind. But this is basically the hand that defines the session and the week. So I just add on, had that aces hand, then about 10 minutes later, 20 minutes later, I get pocket deuces in the big blind, on the button. Someone opens up to 25. Next guy to my right calls. I call. 3 ways to the flop. The flop comes 7-7 deuce with a flush draw.
Beautiful flop.
Original razor checks. The guy to my right leads out for like 55. I only call. Don't want to... I'm thinking I have a lot of this board tied up right now.
Very much so.
Or maybe not tied up, but just what could they have to call a raise kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, if you... Well, because if you raise this flop, I mean, especially with you, like, actually having a fairly loose image, I mean, you might be losing out on flush draws who might just not feel like it's worth it with a paired board. You might be losing out on, like, pocket pairs, like sixes, eights, nines, or jack, or something like that. I like this call here. I mean, you're not scared of anything. You're hoping a flush comes in.
So I call and the next guy calls. The original raiser calls.
Okay.
The turn is the 9 of diamonds, so the front door flush comes in.
Okay, good card.
Original raiser checks. The next guy bets like 80, 85. I still only call. The original raiser calls as well. So 3 ways. The river is the 8 of spades. So the board is 7, 7, 8, 9, deuce, deuce, right?
Right.
The original raiser checks. The guy who's been betting the whole way down.
I think you said deuce, deuce there.
Deuce. Oh, sorry. I did. I sure did. 7, 7, 8, 9, deuce.
Okay.
Yeah. Good call. Good catch. Yeah, right. That's the board I needed. Right. That's. But no. So he bets like 130 or something, but he only has like 300 behind.
Okay.
So I grabbed just a stack of green chips with some blacks on top, actually. So I just stick it out there, thinking that the guy who called originally and just been calling is just going to fold anyway.
Okay.
And I'm putting him in effectively all in, kind of thing, right?
Okay.
I do that. The original raiser starts tanking. And I know this player. I know when this tank happens, I'm in big trouble. We just got... it was a ruse the whole time. I thought I was trapping. Not the case. I already knew, kind of thing.
Right.
He puts me all in. The guy who bet the 130, whatever, he folds. I only have like $200 or $300 behind now. I call. He has 7, 8 of hearts for flop trips, river bigger boat.
Oof, that's nasty.
Yeah, I mean, I hate how I made it 700. But at the same point, if I make it like 3 or 4, well, I'm definitely making it like 4. And he raises to me all in to 1,000. Am I ever folding? I don't think the result changes. I don't really like how I played that hand, though. I mean...
I was thinking maybe, like... Don't get me wrong. I think the way this plays out, no matter what you do, I just feel like it's going to end up the same. I mean, if it's three-handed, it's boat over boat.
Yeah.
I was thinking maybe the turn... do you think of raising the turn bet?
I thought about it, but I thought the guy on my right was just going to pay off, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I was... You know what they say, like you're laying the... What do they call it? Like putting the straw down, laying the trap, and then, boom, I get hit, but...
I mean, yeah, it's kind of a... I don't know. I mean, if someone hits... if you've got someone down to 1, 3... 4 outs on the river, I mean, and they hit it, it just kind of is what it is there.
Yeah, so, but...
I mean, you definitely hate the re-raise on the river, but at that point, you're just... I mean, like you say, like, okay, you make it less, I mean, and he jams all in. I mean, are you really folding a boat here for these odds? I don't know. I mean, you could say, like, well, what else could he have, but... I don't know. That's a pretty tough fold. I mean, folding a boat there with a straight out there, a flush out there. I just think it plays itself.
Yeah, and I mean, that right there, I just said goodbye to my money and ran out the door. I mean, hey, if you've played poker, you've done that before. I mean, that was basically, not the happiest note or conclusion of the week to go out on. Do you have anything to say or not even?
Well, I'm glad to be off my downswing. I mean, I will say that. I was tired of it. I don't like being the losing player on this podcast. It sucks when I have to report all my losses every week. And Tyler's like, another gigantic win. I like the switch.
There you go. Well, we're actually going to go play poker here in a little bit. I thought there was a 5-5 game running, but it does not appear the game happened. And somehow, I guess they called the players. I mean, they have 13 people on the list. What is going on?
Oh, wow.
I mean, they called them, and then somehow the game didn't happen.
Oh, well, we'll see. Hopefully we have at least get some interesting hands for next week's podcast.
Definitely. I guess that'll conclude this week of the Texas Poker Podcast. We'll talk to you next week.
That was the Texas Poker Podcast. Go ahead and rack up, add time, and we'll see you next week.